Hello, patrons. I hope you are well. For the benefit of those listening to the audio, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream, which I've hidden behind the patron paywall this week. It's just gone past 10 a.m. UK time on Saturday, May the 24th. And I've still got around about another 360 days or so of being a European champion. Still buzzing. Coming round to reality a little bit that it's all real and normal. So excuse me for giving you shit answers on game week 38 questions, but I'm going to try and answer some. As per usual, I'll go through questions in order of submission. This stream will go on until I've gone through all the questions. Nothing particular to announce other than just say thank you all for your kind messages and continued support. Oni Dozy is first. Says, hi James. Does the outcome of the Europa League final and the financial implications to Manchester United mean that the makeup of the Big Six has finally changed? Are Villa and Newcastle part of the pack? This depends how you look at it. So, again, I can't remember when exactly we covered it, but me and Clayton, I think, did a really good piece on a Clayton and James show a couple of months ago. About the separation of the Big Six and understanding what a Big Six is, and it depends on your terminology. So from a footballing sense, it's been broken for a while, actually. There are a number of teams who have finished in the top six position over the last 5 or 6 years or so. Leicester, West Ham have done it. Brighton have done it. Nottingham Forest may do it this year. Newcastle and Villa obviously have also got themselves into Champions League positions. So in terms of the on-pitch, yeah, I mean, it's not consistently always the so-called greedy six that are in the top six positions. So if you're judging it on a football perspective, yeah, cool. Newcastle and Villa have been sustainable within the top 8 for the last 3 or 4 years or so now. So I think you could definitely group those two clubs as part of it, whereas others have done it intermittently. Like West Ham did it once, for example. Forest might do it once now. You can't include a club for doing it once. In terms of off the pitch, though, and from a financial perspective, there is a reason it is called the Big Six rather than the top six, because the numbers generated by those greedy six clubs is still way in excess of what Newcastle and Aston Villa can match up against. Now, one of the things I said earlier in the season, I think we said it on that piece, was that really to break into it, Newcastle or Villa have got to finish in qualification places for Champions League for 2 seasons in a row. And until that's achieved, you can't really begin to even put them in the financial bracket. Now, Villa have the opportunity this weekend to do that, but then I don't think we'd be in a position now where we'd include Villa and say, right, it's now a Big Seven and not include Newcastle, right? Doesn't feel right. Plus, with Villa, it's kind of well documented. They've still got to sell a player before the June 30th deadline. A big player. That is beginning to look like it might be Emi Martinez, by the way. So, from a financial perspective, you're qualifying for the Champions League, you still got to sell a player. So, on pitch, yeah, cool. Can't argue against it. Off the pitch, in terms of financial might, like Newcastle and Villa have still got a lot of kind of catching up to do in terms of revenue. And they are both, by the way, very, very capable of doing so. They're extremely well supported football clubs. The major club in their cities, in 2 large cities. Birmingham is obviously a massive city, and Newcastle was a one club team in their city. But from a financial perspective at the moment, it's no. On the pitch, it's yes. So it depends how you want to define it. Aaron Lever says, hi James, who is the best midfielder to replace Sade up to 7.5 million? Or would you sell Bumo for Saka if we get a leak Saka is starting? I'd be very tempted just to stick with Kevin Sade. I think there'll be goals in that Wolves and Brentford game. Obvious answers would, you're short kind of like Bowen and stuff, aren't you? So maybe an Anthony Gordon is it's a punty though. You don't even know if he's going to start. If you can pick the right Arsenal one, I think that's probably where your answer lies in like Trossard or Martinelli. But unless you're convinced or sure on saying, I'll be quite tempted, Aaron, just to stick with Sade, right? It's been in good form. He's got like 4 in 4 or 5 in 5 or something. Again, I think there'll be goals in that fixture tomorrow, so I'd be quite tempted to stick with him. If I had a leak that Martinelli or Trossard was starting and was confirmed on that, I'd be comfortable making the move. Otherwise, I'd arguably stick with him. Bumo to Saka. Again, I think there'll be goals in the game. If you want to captain Saka, then I think it's justifiable to make that move. Also, Bumo may well be a loser in your book in any case. I think he probably will be under the 100% EO this week, but he's in nearly every team, isn't he? So he's not exactly a winner for you if you're not captaining him. So I'd be tempted by that, and I'd probably more that, I think. But if you had confirmation, only if you want to captain Saka, if you have confirmation on Trossard or Martinelli, or even Anthony Gordon, although careful, Newcastle YTKs, make sure it's a reliable, trusted source. Otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't be fretting about moving Sade on. I mean, it's similar to me in the sense I'm going to lose one of Elanga or Rodgers, and it's probably going to be Elanga for Saka, which means benching Rodgers. Wouldn't have a problem with playing Rodgers this week, right? Andrew Parker says, hi James, congrats for Wednesday. My bro went to the stadium to watch the game and said it was brilliant, except the £80 Uber ride home at 1 a.m. But back to FPL, if Isak is out, Welbs or Evan Nilsson. He's done well to get a taxi there, by the way, mate. I probably discussed that more on Wednesday. We didn't have any problems because we was able to get the metro to where we were going. But I've seen some horror videos and stories of people not being able to get out the city. Which is part self-inflicted, but also pretty terrible. On the FPL sense, look, it's final day of the season. I'm going to a party tomorrow. I'm not buying Welbeck instead of Evan Nilsson. I've been pretty clear all week on going Evan Nilsson. I think Welbeck is fine. Me and Suj kind of talked about going both of those two players for the differential team on the differential show yesterday for a -4. I think that's fine. If you want to pump Welbeck, the João Pedro news now obviously means that he's a certain starter, basically, as long as he comes through training today, okay, which you can never be absolutely certain with Danny Welbeck. But there's zero reason to think either of those two players won't start. There probably will be goals in the Tottenham-Brighton game, but all I would say is, if you've done it because of what you've seen at Tottenham Parade last night, I don't really know what that's changed. As I tweeted last night, which Brighton player should I buy now? Tottenham are drunk. Listen, we've been drunk all season. What's changed now? You knew Tottenham were either going to be in a drunk state or a depressed state coming into this weekend. So I don't know what. If you've seen something this week that's kind of changed that narrative for you, I'd probably bin that, right? Because the one thing you certainly say about the game tomorrow now is whatever Tottenham put out, the positivity in the ground is going to be very, very different, right? They're going to be in support of the team. And it doesn't matter in terms of the result, again, but the vibe's going to be very, very different. And I would also say with Welbeck, what's the supply line for him at this moment in quite the same way? Now, they create a good chance against Liverpool. Away game, a little bit different. Brighton only need a draw as well to achieve what they want to achieve on final day. Look, 9s against my team will get chances. That's been said consistently. And I think Tottenham will play the game more like a league game than a European game. There'll be a more relaxed vibe, I'm sure about that. So if you want to go Welbeck, I'm fine with it. But I will be going for Evan Nilsson. JB says, was Spurs Europa League win financially bigger than the richest game in football this afternoon? I don't know what the latest estimated numbers is in terms of promotion, but it's estimated about 120, isn't it? I think it's probably short of that, but relative. And what I mean by that is obviously Tottenham still need to pay, and admittedly Tottenham are quite shrewd, obviously, in terms of what they pay in wages and stuff. But the difference kind of pound for pound in terms of what the requirements and expectations of a football club is, then arguably, yes, it would have been even bigger for Manchester United because of their issues. So borderline, I would say probably in terms of just actual number, it's probably bigger just to get in the Premier League. The jump from the Championship to the Premier League is bigger than playing Premier League and then not playing Champions League. So it probably is still the Championship game, I would have thought. But I got to be honest, and I said this a bit on the podcast yesterday, I'd almost rather not be in the Champions League next year. It's probably more likely to be a hindrance to our season. But I understand the requirements for it from that financial viewpoint and also the ability to attract different players this season, maybe a different manager as well, although he very much looks like Ange will stay now. JB says, I've Rodgers in my 11 this weekend. Would you sell him to another player to start? I'd have 7 million to play with, plus already have Evan Nilsson. Best alternatives consider it's a luxury transfer. So this is very similar to the Sade transfer, essentially, right? That we just spoke about for Aaron. And I said as part of that, I'd be quite happy to play Rodgers this weekend and wouldn't fret about it. He's into double figures for assists now. Very capable in any game against any opponent. Likely to be a haul? Probably not. Unless you find something you think he's great to go to. Now, you're not going to waste a transfer, and I wouldn't recommend it. So, look, obviously, punt something. But my answer is, excuse me, is effectively going to be the same, right? It's the Arsenal players. Rob Pick says, which TV shows are better in Series 3 than Series 2? Oof. I'd just add in just for JB and obviously Aaron as well. Obviously, Marino, obviously, if he'd leaked in the team as a forward, you could include in that conversation as well. Are there any, Rob? I don't watch enough TV shows to give you the answer. Dexter, maybe? It peaked in season 4, didn't it? So, Dexter, maybe. I honestly couldn't give you the answers, right? Couldn't give you the answers. I'm sure there are a number of TV series that were much better in season 2 than season 3 and got canned in season 3. And that might be what happened. But it was a mic drop statement that was very much I think it was needed too. One, he's very clever. He's put Daniel Levy in a position now where Daniel's had to watch that and go, can't sack him now, lads. And that's literally what the statement was, because the reaction to it was great. And it was the first time, I think, for us, the winning the trophy aspect, and I kind of alluded to it, we've not even been bothered about Champions League football next season, is all about the now, as no one's thinking about, I said this in one of the pieces I wrote for the advanced tiers earlier in the week, like there's no tomorrow. There was no after the game for Tottenham. There was no tomorrow. And it was the first kind of speak of, people say, we want to do better next year and stuff like that. But it was the first kind of, right, that's it now. We've won it. This is brilliant. Next season. And I think the fans needed that. Just a line to feel positive about for the summer. Whether they believed it or not, I'm sure there's plenty that don't. It was like, look, we're not stopping now. And I think it was very much needed. And the speech he put together, and it was only a minute long, like, it was brilliant. And that you can, whatever you think of him, and it's difficult on the outside, if that's your representation of you, and he's chest thumping for you, so to speak, kind of in a spoken word, like, you hold on to that and can chase that. We've now got a line that we can use all summer, right? About and listen, it will probably blow up in our faces. But it was a great little speech. The whole day yesterday was brilliant. I don't regret particularly not going. I mean, the scenes were incredible. I was able to sit here and watch it all. And I was probably more emotional about that than actually I was in the ground Wednesday night, because at this point it's all sunk in. You see things like Sonny yesterday, and the little thing like Brennan Johnson was drunk out of his mind. It was good. It's good to just see them happy and all the people so happy and stuff. So I'm normally in the middle of it all, and whatever's going on with Tottenham, is actually to look at it from afar. It actually made a very different change for me. So the answer to your question, Robbie, is I don't fucking know, mate. And he's going to do well to have a better season 3 than the season 2, despite the season 2 being absolutely horrendous bar the conclusion. Andrew Parker says, also got starting defenders of Munoz, Vardiel and Milenkovic. Would you transfer out Munoz for White or Burn? Just seen your player to blank being Watkins. As a Chelsea fan, I hope you're right. I just put the mockers on it, right, because I can't keep being right. So all of those players, it's interesting. All of those players are okay, right? I wouldn't. The thing is, with Munoz especially, I think it's Liverpool where he does play on your mind. You think, I'm not getting a clean sheet out of that, most likely. So he needs an attacking return. What's the chance of that? It's far less likely than likely, isn't it? Vardiol could be at left back again. That I wouldn't be moving on just on that basis. And either way he plays, and that's fairly certain. Milenkovic, I mean, all three are certain starters. The thing with Milenkovic is, and I've spoken about this with the fact I'm going to play Sells this week. If Forest did win 1-0, he could be the 15-pointer, couldn't he? Under that circumstance. If he's at Forest win 1-0, he's the most likely player to drop you the 15-pointer. So I think with that in mind, I think Munoz to White would be the move. There is zero reason to think Ben White won't play right back for Arsenal on Sunday. So I think, yeah, if I was going to buy a defender this week, which is not for me because there's two players I want to buy offensively, but if I was really happy with all my lot offensively, Ben White is the first player I'd be going to buy this week. So I would go Munoz to White. Rob Pick says, thoughts on Nottingham Forest banning Gary Neville from the ground? Does everyone associated with Nottingham Forest use extra sensitive toothpaste? I think how people speak within the football club you support can have an outward impact on behaviour. And I think from the moment of the statement last year after the defeat at Everton, that as a fan almost put Nottingham Forest fans in a position where they had to go on a defensive and defend the statement of their football club. And I think even if you don't want to or don't agree, I think it's normal for any football fan to want to defend their football club if they're being attacked from the outside. Now, unfortunately, this feels like another unnecessary situation where Nottingham Forest have created some negative association to themselves that allows a pile-on from every other fan base, essentially. However, at the same time, Gary Neville made a statement last year, I think after that same statement about Everton, about Marinakis acting like he was part of a mafia, which he later apologised for. I don't believe he's been back to the City ground since then. So Nottingham Forest have probably been waiting their moment for all this time to say, well, when you decide to bring him back, we're just going to tell you, no, you can't. Now, the fact it's landed on the last day of the season, and it's obviously an important game for Nottingham Forest, probably looks like kind of sour grapes time for them. But also, they need to win the football match tomorrow. It adds to the kind of siege mentality, or we're in it together and everyone's on the outside. And, sometimes teams need that sort of thing. I don't think it's that deep. I think it's pretty petty and get over yourselves. But Neville did make a critical comment, which he himself apologised for. I guess Nottingham Forest are not accepting that apology, so they don't want him in their stadium. Is it that deep? No, but I think, probably ultimately, Rob, Forest fans may be a little bit more defensive because of the way the club and Marinakis himself have made their own statements, right, has meant they have to be on the defensive. Also, there's obviously been criticisms of some of the play style this season and a kind of building narrative recently that returning to the norm of what the underlying numbers say and stuff. There's a number of reasons why I completely get why Forest fans will be defensive. It's almost as well, do we not want to see Forest finish in the top five? Like, obviously for Chelsea, Villa, Newcastle City, you're going to focus on yourselves to get that. But for most neutrals, do we not want to see Forest do it tomorrow? And I don't even say that as a Tottenham fan, kind of digging out Chelsea or whatever. If you're a neutral, you want it's like with Palace against City. I've got no particular dislike for City, despite all the 1-1-5 and all that, right? I've supported them most weeks of most seasons over the last couple of years. So, but I think you would want most of us neutrals, unless you hate Palace. Right? If you're a Brighton fan, you didn't want Palace to win last week. Charlton, Mill, whatever, get it. But most of us neutrals want Palace to win yesterday. Surely most of us neutrals actually want Forest to win tomorrow. And I wouldn't think, Marinakis is a dick. I don't like their counter-attacking football, any of these things, and not want them to do it. No, it'd be great for Forest to do it. It'd just be another thing to show this season that the underdog can achieve in one given football season and moment. So there's probably that as well. What I mean by that is people on the outside feel like they're almost attacking. Like, don't you want us to? I don't understand. Don't you want us to finish in the top 5? Also, from a Tottenham perspective, now that my team's going to be in it, I'm like, yeah, drag Forest in it rather than Chelsea or Villa. Would be a bit better because those two sides are better than mine. And I think Forest will find. So here we go. I'm now going to attack. Forest are going to find next season so tough. So tough with that. They're obviously, congratulations, they're going to have European football. They're going to find next season so tough. I would be surprised, truthfully, if they finish top half next season. Rob Pick says, would you take a -4 on the final day to turn Ilanga and Cunha into Saka captain and Evan Nilsson? No confidence in Cunha starting. Alternative is Saliba to Kivior Kirkes and keep Cunha. Well, the only thing that's changed, obviously, since we did the podcast yesterday was the fact that Jurgen Strand-Larsen is now doubtful. If Larsen doesn't make it, Cunha will start, won't he? If Larsen is available, then there's every chance Cunha won't start. But I would also factor in there were a lot of changes to that team in midweek. And it might be, look, final home game, he goes, nah, we'll play Cunha and stuff. I agree with you, Rob, but that could go either way. I would take the -4, personally. I'd go for it. I think I always say be happy with your decision at deadline. It's a 1-week decision, right? You're punting in a captain and a talisman forward who are about to play 2 of the relegated teams. And I think you can be quite content with that decision, and then the outcome will be the outcome. I'd be quite content with that decision. I think, I was trying to think it, I'm going probably Elanga to Saka captain and benching Rodgers instead. So kind of effective over Rodgers and Evan Nilsson in for Cunha. So very similar. And they're obviously for 2-3s. Would I do that for a -4? Probably yes. The only difference might have been for me, Rob, that I might have just gone, because I'd look at Cunha as the biggest problem, actually. I might have just gone, I'm going to go Evan Nilsson and not bother with Saka. That might have been the way I'd looked at it. But then I think Saka captain -4 over Rodgers, 1 day to go. Yeah, it could pay. It also depends, Rob. I don't know if you're trying to hold some form of rank, or if you're trying to hold some form of rank, I'd be a little bit conscious of that. But unless that's what you're trying to do, I'd go for it. I'd go for the -4, mate. Daniel Cullerton, I'm going to get so many repetitive questions on the deadline stream tomorrow, aren't I? Daniel Cullerton, do you know what? I might wear a party hat or something, and I don't know if I've got any. Daniel Cullerton says, I'm on a game week 38 bench boost. In fact, I'm going to wear my fucking UEFA Cup shirt from 84. Daniel Cullerton says, I'm on a game week 38 bench boost. 2 free transfers. Who would you bring in for Munoz and Konate to chase some upside? Budget, not a problem. 2 Arsenal defenders. Yeah, I'd go all in for it, mate. Really would. So White, first and foremost, you're extremely unlikely to own. That would be first choice. I would probably go Kivior over Calafiori. Just Kivior would be a certain starter, and Calafiori maybe could end up being like a 45-minute job. If you've got both and aren't keen on taking a risk on Calafiori, and I do think there's a bit more of that, probably just go Kirkes. Actually, is the next one. But I would also say, Daniel, which I've said most of the week, if you want to chase the upside, maybe it should be attacking players. But I obviously can't see what you've got, pal. Mr. FIPA99 says, what kind of impact do you think Florian Wirtz could have for Liverpool next season? First and foremost, slightly surprised. I don't mind it. It's not a criticism, but slightly surprised that Liverpool are going to spend more than 100 million on one player. It's a statement of intent, assuming that it goes through as it looks like it's going to do. It's a statement of intent of not sitting and standing still, which I think is good and it's positive. He'll be there for all of pre-season. I think that's critical. You're buying a player for that sort of value, and you're getting them in towards the end of an August deadline and stuff. Pressure comes mad. He'll be there first day of training pre-season. That's a big positive for him and his acclimatization. What you may get is more of a kind of a central point 10. Maybe from him. I think he also has the ability to drift in from a flank position and move into a 10. I think particularly him doing that in Germany's win against Scotland in the first game of the Euros last summer. It was last summer, wasn't it? Yeah, we were in Oggia last summer, which is a really good game to look back on in terms of the type of positionings that he can pick. I think him and, if I remember correctly, kind of Gundogan playing as kind of like in the 10 half space positions caused Scotland so much trouble. So he can play off a flank. He can play in a 10. I've not seen him play a deeper role. Whether he would be suitable as a false 9, probably not, maybe. So there's possibly a little bit of a tweak coming for Liverpool, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think also Liverpool have quality in the squad that if he's having a little bad spell, you can dip him out and bring him back in. He's obviously very creative. He's a good carrier. His attacking numbers for where he plays are pretty good. It just looks like a great signing all round. So I don't foresee too many problems with it. I think I'm more intrigued if Liverpool systematically are kind of more like a 6-8, half 10, 8, with one that's more of a runner to push up alongside, which has predominantly been Szoboszlai this season. It is a position that does need a lot of energy. So it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if at the start of next season you're seeing him not doing 90 minutes and stuff. And listen, he's got to be better than Szoboszlai to get in the team. Of course he will, but you might find that it's a slower integration and not one necessarily we should just absolutely dive into for fantasy. Let's see what we see in pre-season. The fitness status of others is going to have an impact on that as well. But I think it's a brilliant signing. He's an absolutely top player. Who is capable of being one of the best in his position in the world. I'm not certain that he's quite that yet, but he's certainly young enough to become it as well. Top player. It's a great signing for Liverpool if it goes through. Andrew Jarvis says, morning James, which combo scores the most points this game week? What, rather than a different one, buddy? Haaland and Murphy / Elanga, or Salah and Evanilson? I'm going to say Salah and Evanilson, mate. Personally, I think Mo will return tomorrow. I'm obviously backing Evanilson to return by purchasing him as well. So, and I'm talking about moving Elanga out. I don't think Haaland is a better option this week than Salah. So I certainly think Evanilson is better than the other two. So quite a straightforward Salah and Evanilson for me. Andrew says, also just wanted to thank you for all your hard work this year. Well worth every penny as an AT patron. Thank you, my friend. It's appreciated. It's appreciated even more so, I think, when I've had me time. And I know there was little bits of content for the AT patrons and stuff as well. It's not work. I had some me time this week, and you reflect on that more. Yeah, cool. Yeah, we've had a good year again, I think. Rhino says, hi James, Palmer and Cher, or Saka and O'Brien. That's a more difficult one, isn't it? Because none of us are fancying Everton to do anything at Newcastle tomorrow, are we? I don't think. And I'm back in Newcastle for a clean sheet, so I kind of got to share at least 4 up on O'Brien. But I think I'm going to have Saka top of the captaincy matrix, I think. So there's an influence on that. If not captaincy for Saka, in your opinion, bruv, then probably Palmer and Cher. If including the Saka captaincy, I'm possibly still going to lean for that. Rhino says, also, would you take 17th next season, but you make Champions League final and don't know the result till it happens? Fucking hell. I don't think I do, mate. No, no. Listen, at this moment in the euphoria of winning the trophy, and I think also, um, I spoke about this yesterday about the players will be remembered better over time. We'll forget how shit the majority of them have been this season because they won the Europa League. And I think when time passes, it might be different from people on the outside. Time will only remember 2025 with fondness for Tottenham, even if it blows up even later this year with Ange and he gets sacked and it's on the floor. Time will remember 2025 for Tottenham winning a European trophy. 1984 is not remembered for anything other than that. So I get what you're saying. And therefore, in a sense, like it has a greater legacy than the run to the Champions League final, despite having nowhere near the carnage moments of that run. No, Ed, I said before the final, and this hasn't changed, by the way. Like, I'll answer the question that someone was inevitably going to ask at some point: was Wednesday night better than Ajax? I said it in the piece for the advanced tier patrons in the article I wrote on Thursday. Not even close. Like, literally not even close. And that is in terms of a highlight. That is the greatest highlight in my time supporting Tottenham is seeing Tottenham lift the European trophy. But to top a night at the moment, I'm telling you, I don't think Ajax will ever be beaten. And there was no reward on the end of that. And a part of that is the association of what we felt as the connection. I would still, as I wrote in that same article on Thursday, I would still sell half of those players given the chance. And if you could define it, it's like, oh, do you want to keep Ange? Right. If Tottenham can get Luis Enrique, can't fucking get Luis Enrique, right? So there's a standard. I'd be ruthless about it under that sort of circle. I'll sack Ange and get Marco Silva. I'm nothing against Marco Silva, but might as well stick at the moment, right? As an example. You want to get me Luis Enrique and say, right, yeah, we've done that. Brilliant. Well done. Thanks. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm going to get you this guy. Yeah, I'm going to change. So, like, what does that make me as a fan and stuff? I don't. This season has been so dreadful. Has it been worth it to have the reward at the end of the season? Yes. And obviously, to factor in to get a Champions League final along that path, there's got to be something that brings more like an Ajax moment, right? It just has to be. Whereas, like, winning in Frankfurt was brilliant, but again, it was just about the result, right? Beating Bodo was just about the result. What we would have on a Champions League run might be a bit different, Ed. Ultimately, for me, no. And also, does 17th next year look different? Is 17th a genuine stress of getting relegated? Whereas pretty much from the moment we won at Brentford in February, it was like, okay, yeah, you can park that now. That's fine. And we were, I don't know, still some stupid 12 points clear at that point or something. I think it's a no. I don't want to ever watch this league season again. But also, yeah, take me to Budapest would be cool, mate, for the final. No, sod it. We got a next season. We got to be first and foremost a football club that wins more matches than we loses. That's the first thing that needs to happen next season. And what I would say as well is the winning, although it's probably likely keeping Ange, ain't going to shift the pressure. No Tottenham fans going to be sitting there now going, well, 17th. Yeah, we'll be all right with 10th, 9th next year. No. We're in the Champions League. The demand will have to be that would be the target to get in it again. So that's a huge jump, right, from 17th to 4th, 5th next season. It's very unlikely, isn't it? That's the sort of jump we probably need to achieve. I think it's a no, Ed. I've just been too much crap this year, man. I don't know if it'd be worth it. And again, is this season now better than the year we finished second and 1-0 the final season at White Hart Lane? Again, not even close, mate. Take me back to that feeling of connection. So I'm going to say no, mate, but it's an interesting thought. I saw someone, this is legit true, a Tottenham fan I follow called Alex, who I bumped into after a game earlier this season. I think a game we'd actually won for a change. He was like, "Are you James playing FPL?" Yeah, so we followed each other and stuff. And he retweeted a poll. This is crazy. A poll that he put out in 2021. And the poll was, would you take finishing 17th and winning Europa legitimately? This is in 2021. Or finishing second? And 56% went for 17th and the Europa. It's amazing. Now also accept that I've done that now. I've got that t-shirt. The social experiment of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club of being the team closest to relegate and winning the European trophy has been repeated by no one else ever. We are the lowest positioned team in a league ever to win a European trophy. As far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure that's correct. There's a couple who've been like 14th and stuff. So we are the ultimate social experiment. We must be, in my head. So I've done that now. I've got that t-shirt. No, can I have something else now, I think? Lamici says, "Hi James, would you move KDB or Asensio to Saka? The other would start for me." Yeah, I would move Asensio as well. Jacob Ramsey will come back in the Villa team, and therefore there's every chance Asensio won't start. So that would be really straightforward. And I know KDB might not start either. I actually think City will do well tomorrow. Not that Villa can't, obviously. I would chance that keeping KDB. I think as well, Lamici, having gone the KDB route, if you sell him tomorrow and he starts, I think you'd be gutted before he even starts. Whereas the other way round, not so. Asensio starting. You won't feel the same about it, mate. I would go Asensio to Saka. Daniel Cullison says, "Just ask Brendan Rodgers if season 3 is always better than season 2. I have no idea what happened to Brendan Rodgers in season 3, mate. Whether that was at Leicester, Celtic, Liverpool, not a clue, mate. No idea. But I suspect it was probably a no, i.e. shit. Adam Cooper says, "My 5 defenders are Saliba, injured. Trippier, doubtful. Vardiol, Dunk. This Dunk won't play, I don't think. Munoz. Is it worth a -4 transfer Trippier and Saliba out?" No. No, it's not. I'd go one. I truthfully, I'd bin Saliba because that's definitive. Okay, that's definitive. Again, factor in that for Newcastle is kind of an effective cup final. So Trippier probably either starts or doesn't make it. I think that would be my guess. They don't have to do that, but that's probably the way it goes. Then you'll take him off if or when the game's won. Dunk, you wouldn't be fussy about picking against Tottenham anyway. So sell Saliba for Ben White probably, and I would start White, Trippier, Vardy. And if they all played, I think you'd be bloody happy with that, wouldn't you, Adam? And then if Trips doesn't play, you know what you're getting from Munoz. Okay, he probably is a 1-2 pointer, but with capability of getting an attacking return. And for it to be worth the hit to get something over him, the player you get in has probably got to get the attacking return, or at least the clean sheet. Now, if you went to Arsenal, okay, yep, chasing the upside maybe. I don't think I would, Adam. For one game week, I just don't think there's enough justification in it. When someone like a Munoz can return in any game, is it that beyond reason that Palace beat this Liverpool that's been on, I don't want to say the piss, but they've been enjoying themselves, right? And I've been clear, I think Liverpool will win tomorrow, and I probably think they'll be on it. But yeah, Munoz is a fair sub. If Trippier don't, mate, I don't think Trippier will be a 1-pointer tomorrow, mate. I don't. I think he'll play or he won't. One or the other. And I think they might risk him, actually, judging by Eddie Howe's comments. So I would go Saliba to White, and I'd leave it at that. And I'd start Trippier and have Munoz first sub. JB says, "Who would you like to see promoted, Sheffield United or Sunderland?" No real preference. Sheffield United, for me, it all comes down to Tottenham. Sheffield United, an easier journey, shit away end. But I like Sheffield. I think Sheffield's cool. Sunderland's been a while. Sorry, I'm going to say it. Controversial. Bigger football club. And I think the Premier League, if I remove Tottenham for the minute, would be better next year for having Sunderland in it than Sheffield United. Have two big clubs like Leeds and Sunderland come up. I've done the Stadium of Light. I would prefer that up in the gods, up there, like it is at Newcastle. It's not quite as high, than being away in the Bramall Lane. And quite often, the who I want to win is defined by the experience of an away day. So I'm going to say Sunderland, mate. But at the same time, I know we've got a number of Sheffield United patrons and followers, and obviously I'd be delighted for Tomo if Sheffield United come back up as well. But from the Tottenham viewpoint, I'm going to say Sunderland. Daniel Cullerton says, what's it been like in the past for lineup leaks on the last game with all games starting at the same time? Well, I'm probably not best placed to answer that, Daniel, because last year I was travelling, ironically, to Sheffield on the final day of the season. In fact, at the time of deadline last season, I can tell you I was drunk, mate. Legitimately. I can't even remember what I did transfer-wise. Definitely did something. I might have done it in the morning. I can't remember. So I had no idea last season. But I would suggest, Daniel, the answer will be different for each season. And also the deadline only changed, last year to an hour and a half. So probably year before it was probably a little bit easier. I suspect some of the main ones, City, you'll get information on. Arsenal, Liverpool, strong chance you'll get information on. Newcastle, you need to be careful. Newcastle, what you want is like lazy FPL to say to you like Isak starting or something like that, right? If you do not know the Newcastle source, do not trust it tomorrow. Alright, if it's right, it's right. Cool. Don't trust it if you don't know it. That's the best advice I can give you. So ultimately, Daniel, it's very unpredictable, isn't it? And it's only going to be realistic. It's only going to be the top clubs. You know what I mean? It's just random. Let's say Vissel was benched by Brentford, which he won't be, but just give you an example. Like, you ain't getting that sort of info, right? It's only going to be the kind of from the top 8. You've got a chance of getting something realistically. I'd say. Although the Forest, you might get something if that's important to people. There's a few people seem to knock about the Forest lineup fairly early sometimes. Harry Trimble says, hey James, congrats for Wednesday night. Who to bench between Marmoush, Murphy and Ilanga? Which 3 defenders would you start, assuming all were starting? Right, I'll answer the first bit first. I would not be benching Marmoush or Murphy if I intended to keep them in my squad, so that's straightforward. Which 3 defenders would you start out of Milenkovic, Bradley, Trippier, Vardiol, Munoz? So Bradley, Vardiol, yeah, and I would go Trippier. And then I'd go Milenkovic over Munoz. The reason for going Trippier would be the exact thing, Harry, that I just answered for Adam's question previously. So, yeah, it would be Bradley, Trippier, Vardiol for me, Milenkovic over Munoz as subs. Rhino says, glad you said no, mate, because I don't want to know the result of Leeds v Spurs in game week 38 in our relegation grudge match. You think we're doing final day again, do you, mate? JB says, where do Spurs need to finish next season to ultimately not end up seeing Ange sacked? Top 8 is tough given the season, but would that be enough? I mean, the other thing here is Daniel Levy warned strongly that Tottenham weren't going to spend quite heavily this summer. But at that point, it looked like there'd be no European football. I think this was kind of around the last 16 stage of the quarterfinal, so you certainly couldn't think, oh, we'll have what will come investment wise from the Champions League. And obviously Tottenham have earned well from this run. I think it's 40 million for winning Europa League, but it's effective another 5 million by just being in the Super Cup final, actually. So I think it's effective 45. It's probably half what you'd expect for just probably going out in a group of the Champions League, by the way. There's things that might change now. So I think Romero, for example, was a certain lever. He may stay now. There will be less pressure to. And by the way, Tottenham's pressure isn't FFP. It's, as Suj has explained well on the Money in Football podcast, it's a money in the bank issue, and it's a money owed to other football clubs on transfers. Is kind of the problem, and Tottenham have a large amount of that coming up. Now, obviously, what we do in European football is going to account for a number of that, but I think it's very difficult to say, right? Because Tottenham, effectively, from an FFP perspective, Tottenham could go 200 million, no issue this year, and be nowhere near blowing FFP. Now, Tottenham aren't going to do that, but Tottenham may re-energise the squad. Now, for example, if Romero did go, I think where he's at contract-wise, the minimum Tottenham be looking at 60-odd million. He's just won Europa League player of the tournament. He's a World Cup winner. There are certain things there where you can say, yeah, I want to push this towards 80. Now, Tottenham got that and then re-energised the squad. Then who knows what Tottenham's squad looks like. That squad needs a big overhaul, in my opinion. It's been identified that they need a bit more experience this summer, right? Because they've gone and got people like Archie Gray, Bergvall, etc. There's a lot of good young kids coming through. You'll know about the likes of Mikey Moore. You'll be less familiar with people like Luka Vuskovic, who's going to be part of the squad next year, who genuinely might even end up being a Romero replacement if Romero did go. And these other people might come back and be integrated. People like kind of Ashley Phillips, who's had a good season out on loan at Stoke, for example. There's a lot of I don't knows about Tottenham and the transfer window. So where Tottenham look like in terms of an outlook for next season, I feel like it's quite difficult to say. The worst thing Tottenham would do is go, this team's won the Europa League. Right, now I'm going to stick ball. Tottenham got to be quite cutthroat with some of this, because that squad needs a lot of work, as I keep saying. So I think it's very difficult to say, because if Tottenham then also go through a season with no injuries, add quality through spine, get Ange. If Ange is staying, for fuck's sake, someone buy him a 1v1 dribbler to play on the wing, right? These things could make quite a sizable difference. Not to the extent I go, I think Tottenham will finish top four, and I agree. You look at it now and you think, yeah, I couldn't see it being much more than sort of 7th, 8th. But also, you can't see that for Manchester United at the moment either. And I'm also sitting here saying, Forest will finish bottom half next year, right? So suddenly you're looking at it and going, well, unless someone else has a Forest-like season, then should Tottenham finish 7th next year? And then 7th, right, it might just be the difference of 2-3 results either way to be 4th or 5th. So at the moment, no, I couldn't see it right now. But I think in terms of target, it's interesting. It's almost back to the start a little bit. So in year one, when he came in, he obviously had to change the mentality of the football club, which is, with the trophy, he's now going to do that. Also the play style massively from what we'd experienced the previous years, right? It was just a kind of remit to make the fans happy again. And I had said in that season, like pretty much 6 weeks in, he's won. No matter what happens the rest of this season. And actually from that point, it was disappointing not to finish in the top 4, right? But there was a bit of mitigating, again, injuries. A lot played into that. And I realise this is part of an Ange problem. I'm not silly. But it is almost back to the start. So, like, if Tottenham acquit themselves okay in the Champions League, finish in a position that qualified for Europe next year, and everyone felt positive about Ange this time next year, then that'd be okay, I think. But that's probably the minimum. He's got to qualify for Europe again in some form, I would suggest. And there's also the relevance of saying like someone like a Romero may stay now. And I don't mind if he goes, by the way. He may stay, but then if he does, and then it's Conference League football, like he's going to go. And you'd have to say, yeah, good luck, off you go. And he probably wouldn't be the only one, right? Very difficult to put a measure on that at this moment, because it's been so bad in the league this season. But in a weird way, if Tottenham finish 6th or 7th next season, and qualified for either of the Europa competitions, it's progress. Does that make sense? It's not really, but it is. So I don't know how to equate that yet. I also don't particularly fucking want to. Next year feels miles away in my mind, mate. Alex Barrett says, have you watched much of Wirtz? How would he fit in at Liverpool? I covered near the start, Alex, but the only thing I would say in all honesty is like I haven't seen him that much for Leverkusen. The majority of what I'd seen him was obviously for Germany. Curry says, hi James, on free hit. Is triple Newcastle share Gordon Isak really that crazy? Could we not see Everton throwing in the towel? No, not at all. The only thing to say on that, in Gordon and Isak, there's a chance that neither of them play, right? That's what the problem here is. And therefore I would probably I would definitely punt one of them too if I was on a free hit. I'm not sure I'd go both. That's all I'd say about that. And because I think there's enough good other options. So I think if you'd looked at it on the outset, you'd have gone, right, free hit, game at 38. If we'd looked at it a few weeks ago, you'd have gone, yeah, Arsenal, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Liverpool. That's what we'd have looked at, right? Now, to do that, we're saying no Boomo, no Bowen. So you don't need to do that. And there's other players, people talking about Welbeck now, for example. You could still have like a Watkins, for example, or Cole Palmer, Haaland. There's other players, right? It doesn't need to be narrowed that much where we thought it might have to be. So I don't think it needs the Newcastle treble up, is the answer. Is there a chance that Everton throw in the towel tomorrow? Probably not under David Moyes. I think I can't see Everton getting a result, and the main reason for that is the absence of obviously Tarkowski and Branthwaite, and that leads in. But the Newcastle guys aren't happy with Gordon and Isak, although I am very confident he plays. I'm not there to see what's happening in training today to give you the answer, so I would probably bottle it on one of them. Crazy though? Nah, of course not. Alex Barrett says, and obviously free hit, pick a strong bench, right? That would be the other bit of advice. Like if you are on a serious, if you're going down that route, don't think, I'm scared to leave like a Bumo first sub. Have like a Bumo as a first sub or a Bowen a first sub, something like that. Alex Barrett says, who would you punt out of Martinelli or Trossard for the final day? I would go Martinelli of the two, just because ultimately I think there's a little bit more chance of him starting. But I certainly acknowledge, as discussed yesterday, Trossard's numbers, I think we discussed it on the Patreon pod. Trossard's numbers are not bad, right? I think Martinelli's done all right the last number of weeks, actually. I think there's a punt one game. If you said to me you've got to buy one of them for 4 or 5 weeks, say Trossard, actually. But just one game, I think I'd go Martinelli. Lamici says, James, would you move Saliba to White -4 to bench Munoz? No. It's kind of covered for someone else earlier. No. Like, he can pay. If you were going to do it, yeah, Ben White would be the top defender to get this way. I've been clear on that. But for -4, I'm going to say no, buddy. Mark Johnson says, thanks for the kind words about Sheffield as a city. I think joking. Shit out, really. No, it's not. I like Sheffield. Yeah. It's nice. You get off the train. You can have mad bars, quiet bars. I like Sheffield. It's got a nice feel to it, actually. Yeah, it's something. Some places you go and you feel like you could be anywhere. I don't know what it is, but there is something about Sheffield that. Yeah, I'm in Sheffield. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it as a place. Yeah, I like Sheffield. I think that's it, guys. Thank you very much. Love you all. Thanks for the support. Fanview with Gary be out for you in the near future as well. Talking about Chelsea's obviously important couple of games coming up. Still plenty of Tottenham references in there, of course. And the deadline stream is at 1:30 p.m. UK tomorrow. As a repeat, we are going to take a little break from Thursday. So Tuesday game review, obviously bank holiday here tomorrow. Game review pod Tuesday, Clayton and James Wednesday. Q&A for patrons Tuesday, Tottenham Wednesday. I think we put Slack stories for the advance on Tuesday and Nico's Corner Wednesday, and we'll have a best bits of the last 10 days out on Thursday. And we're going to take a break from Thursday till Monday, June the 9th. Literal break. And then there's going to be another break I forget the dates exactly. I think it's the 17th of July to the 31st of July. As a reminder, Patreon is free in July. I will still be doing content in the first couple of weeks. Now that I am back from Bilbao, as a reminder, Clayton is going to be unavailable, let's say, probably the majority of the summer. And Suj is also going to be available those first 2 weeks in July. So Suj isn't going to pod for about a month. If you want to do a podcast with me on whatever you like, now is the time to start getting in my DMs, because we will make it happen. You got something specific you feel passionate about, you'd like to do a podcast with me about, we will do it. Because I haven't given much thought yet to what I'm actually going to do from content. So you guys step up. If you've got ideas, let's make it happen. Particularly looking at that period in obviously early July when Suj isn't about either, to put some interesting stuff together with you guys. I'm going to need the support of you guys over that period if you want to get involved. So it doesn't mean you have to do it right now. Have a think about it over the weekend. Message me from Monday. Let's talk. Let's get some plans in motion for what should still be a good month, a good summer of content. Thank you for all the support throughout the season, guys. Very importantly, for final day, please play it your way. For the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.